Becoming a mother, something many women take for granted, didn't come easy to me. After quite a few cycles of IVF, in vitro fertilization, I was finally pregnant. And to my surprise, not one, but 2 heartbeats appeared on the sonogram. I was pregnant with twins, a boy and a girl. When I was 18 weeks pregnant, my doctor suggested I go on bed rest. I hated the idea. But of course I said yes, spending my days lying down and preparing for twins. A few weeks later, I felt a sudden pain in my back. I assumed it was nothing, but when I felt it once more, I decided to go get examined just to be on the safe side. I called my husband. I told him, listen, it's probably nothing, but I'm going to go get examined just in case. On the way, the pain became more and more severe, and by the time I reached the clinic, I knew without a doubt that something in my body was very wrong. I walked up to the receptionist and I told her, I'm in pain, I need to see the doctor now. She said, honey, there's a line, wait your turn, which I did or tried to do, since by that time, standing, sitting, everything was too painful. I could barely breathe. When it was my turn, I walked into the doctor crying, and I said, something's very wrong, please help me. He did an ultrasound and told me, everything looks fine. Sometimes pregnant women have psychosomatic contractions. You just need to relax, take a breath, drink a glass of water, and go home. But by that time, I knew this wasn't in my head, and I knew I had to get to a hospital as soon as possible. So I told this to the doctor, and I asked if they had an ambulance on call or any other way to help me, only to be told once again, everything's fine, relax, calm down. So I somehow got to the hospital on my own. I walked to the street, stopping every few minutes to breathe through the pain. I caught a taxi, one I didn't pay for till this day. And when I reached the hospital, I saw a doctor fairly quickly, who told me I was in labor. I remember asking, okay, so what do we do? How do we stop it? And she said, we don't know how to stop labor at this point. This is a one-way ticket. You're going to give birth, and the babies won't survive. I remember being wheeled past a line of women waiting their turn to go to the delivery room. Some of them congratulated me, Mazal Tov, as I passed them. Coming home after stillbirth is a very surreal experience. There was no burial, no grave, no event or ceremony acknowledging that anything significant had happened. At that time in Israel, parents weren't allowed to participate in the burial of stillborn babies, so it was really as if to the world, nothing had happened. No birth, no death. Invisible grief for invisible babies. I had an urgent need to meet other women who had gone through similar experiences, almost as a way of acknowledging that I wasn't going crazy and something had happened. And the more I met women, the more I began to realize that maybe this wasn't me overreacting. Maybe this was society ignoring a significant event in the life of many women and men, similar to other events attended until just recently to be dismissed, left in the darkness to be dealt with as a private matter, but not a public one. But I couldn't go on as if nothing had happened. Something had changed in me, even if it was invisible. I started studying gender studies, and I began to understand that what I had gone through that day in the clinic, that was also rooted in social context. I found evidence in research that when women and men complain about the same symptoms, women have a higher chance of being dismissed. One research, for example, found that when women and men come to the emergency room with abdominal pain, men receive attention 15 minutes faster than women. This isn't due to conscious bias. I don't think the doctors saw me that day and said, she's a woman, therefore she's hysterical. But just due to the fact that doctors are human beings. And like all of us, we grow up in a world that associates women with certain traits, such as being emotional, overreacting, being complainers, hysterical. But when it comes to medicine, unconscious bias can literally kill. Understanding something that I went through is actually a social problem can be liberating, because I now know there's nothing I could have done, even if I had screamed at the top of my lungs. I may have been ignored because women's complaints about pain tend to be dismissed. The more I dove into the gender aspects of medicine, the more I realized how many medical experiences women go through are rooted in social context. Women with endometriosis, a disease that causes severe pain, often wait an average of 5 to 10 years before being diagnosed. This isn't only a personal tragedy for many. This is a disease that affects 1 in 10 women and has been under-researched and underfunded for far too long. Women coping with sleeping disorders or mood swings are often unaware that their symptoms could be connected to hormonal changes rooted, for example, in contraceptives or menopause. Once again, there's a lack of awareness, lack of funding, lack of research on such fundamental issues. Our bodies have historically literally been excluded from research. It was like looking at my body in a whole new way, and I knew I had to do something, but I had no idea what. So, I started working with women going through fertility treatments. I started meeting organizations mapping out the ecosystem in Israel, and I met great organizations, mostly focused on empowering women with knowledge so that they can make better decisions regarding their bodies. And while this is so important, what was missing was policy change. Because if this is a social problem, we need to change the system. That's when I founded the Bria Foundation. Our goal is to systematically change the way women receive healthcare through lobby, through research, and through funding. The word Bria has 2 meanings in Hebrew. It means both healthy in the feminine form, and it also means creation, because we embody the ability of creation. So I embarked on my new creation, and I had no idea where it would take me. When I first started, I created a Facebook page and spontaneously started receiving messages from women about their medical experiences. After a short while, it became evident that one of the topics to repeat themselves, story after story, were gynecological examinations. And I quickly learned that at that time in Israel, there was no policy, no protocol on the matter. So, for anyone who hasn't had a gynecological examination in the past few years, let me paint a picture of, say, a teenage girl going into her first exam. She's probably been told her whole life to close her legs and guard her body. Then she walks into a fluorescent-lit clinic and is told to lie down and spread her legs. Maybe she'll wonder what to do with her underwear. Maybe she'll hold it in her hand out of sheer embarrassment. Maybe she'll be covered, maybe not. Then the doctor will walk in, many times a man. He could be the first man she's ever been physically exposed to. He'll sit down with his head in between her legs, and then comes the order. Relax, because if you don't, it will hurt. I can't think of anything more relaxing. So what can we do to make the situation a little less uncomfortable for women? I wanted to raise women's voices, so I thought, let's ask women. Created a simple questionnaire, uploaded it to Facebook, and within a day, over 1,000 women participated. Within a week or two, 6,500 women participated, making it the biggest survey ever done in the world on the matter. It was almost as if women were waiting to be asked. For many of them, it was the first time they ever voiced an opinion or realized they had a say. So, what can we learn from 6,500 women? 50% of the women who participated find gynecological examinations embarrassing. A third find them physically painful, and 20%, 1 in 5, find gynecological examinations traumatic. As a result, women tend to change doctors quite often. The most common reason women quoted for changing doctors was, "I felt uncomfortable in my last exam." What kind of things can make women feel uncomfortable? We asked women if they ever received a comment or a conversation that made them uncomfortable, and we analyzed all the quotes. Things like, "You're a pretty girl. You should be on birth control." Or, "It's taking you too long to get ready. This isn't a strip club." Or, "Why didn't you shave? With that amount of hair, no man will ever have you." 50% of the quotes had to do with women's physical appearance, whether compliments or not. In the next part of the survey, we asked women what was most important to them. What changes did they want to see? The highest rated elements all had to do with communication between them and the doctor, receiving an explanation, having time for questions, and being warned before every step of the way. Second were things that have to do with privacy, having a private area to get undressed, being covered, and having a curtain around the bed. Third were things that had to do with comfort, like having a designated place to put my underwear, being able to choose my own position, or being able to insert the device, speculum or ultrasound, on my own. When we analyzed the data, our goal was to translate women's experiences into clear, practical recommendations that could easily be implemented in the medical system. And in that regard, our recommendations are quite simple. Let's give women as much control as possible. Make sure they understand what's going on, make sure there are no surprises, and give them as many choices and options as possible. Our recommendations became official policy in Israel. The Gynecological Union, the Ministry of Health, and all the big HMOs adopted our recommendations, creating for the first time official policy in Israel. The next step, now that policy had changed, was to make sure women were aware of their rights. So we created what we call the Gynecological Treaty, giving women simple information about what's about to happen and what their rights are. Here's a picture from Sheba Medical Center, the biggest hospital in Israel, where women coming to the ER receive our treaty. Here's the way the treaty looks in Maccabi, the second biggest HMO in Israel, where every gynecologist is required to hang our treaty in their clinic. We're now working with amazing doctors and with the Gynecological Union to create training for doctors on how to communicate in intimate examinations, especially in cases where there may be a history of sexual trauma or other complex issues. Doctors need tools, they need support. Ever since founding the Bria Foundation, we've been lobbying and changing policy and funding projects on a large range of issues. We've supported, for example, the creation of unique clinics for women going through pregnancy loss, training and better services for women with sexual trauma, digital innovative services in mental health and postpartum depression. It's like every time I open a door, I discover 10 more doors, more issues that need to be changed. And my goal in the future, through collaborations, is to work on a global level because unfortunately, these problems aren't unique to Israel. Back to my personal story. I'm now a mother of 2 amazing girls who I hope will never feel they're invisible, silenced. And to get to that point by the time they grow up, governments and medical establishments around the world have to take it upon themselves to change the way women receive health care. And what could we do as patients? If there's one thing I've learned in the Bria Foundation, it's to never assume that something can't be changed. When I published the survey, I received dozens of messages from women saying things like, "I can't believe I never asked to be covered. It never crossed my mind." Because we tend to take things for granted, and we assume this is the way it's done. 1 million women have gone through it before me, and I should just be quiet and get over with it. But the truth is that we have a say in the way our bodies are treated. And when we open our mouth and create a conversation, this is better for patients, for doctors, and for the medical outcome. So the next time you go get examined or go get a blood test, think about what would be best for you. Maybe you want to receive a full explanation every step. Or maybe you just want complete silence and to listen to music until it's over. You know your body best. You have a say. You always have a say. So I'll end with a sentence that feminist women have said way before me. Let's have nothing about us without us. Thank you.